The first thing Amelia Hayes felt was the cold, sticky wetness soaking through her elegant silver gown, followed by the sound of 300 rich people laughing. It wasn't a nice, light laugh. It was a cruel, sharp noise that bounced off the New York City ballroom's crystal chandeliers, cutting through Amelia like glass. Amelia stood frozen right under the brightest light in the room, watching the red wine drip, drip, drip down the beautiful silk of her dress. The red stain grew wide and dark, looking exactly like blood on white snow. The woman who did it, Chelsea Knox, Amelia's husband's former secretary and now his very public girlfriend, lifted her wine glass with a smug, mean smile. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Chelsea said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I just didn't see you there, Mrs. Hayes." She paused, making sure everyone heard the next part. "Wait, is it still Mrs. Hayes? Or are you just Amelia now?" The laughter grew louder and camera flashes popped like tiny explosions. Amelia's heart was beating against her ribs like a trapped bird. She was Amelia Carter Hayes, the daughter of a legendary businessman and the brilliant, steady woman who helped her husband build an empire worth billions. Yet, in one messy public moment she was nothing but a joke. And her husband, Ryan Hayes, the man she loved and trusted, stood right beside his mistress. Did he rush to help her? Did he scold Chelsea? No. Ryan didn't move an inch. He just adjusted the fancy cufflink on his sleeve, a small, controlled smile curving his lips, the kind of smile a conqueror wears when looking down at a broken statue. His voice was calm, ice-cold, and loud enough for every guest to hear. "You really should watch where you stand, Amelia. You're blocking the light." A public insult. A poison dart shot right in front of the world. It was his way of telling everyone, she doesn't matter anymore. Amelia felt the humiliation slam into her, making her dizzy. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run away. But then she heard a voice in her mind, her late father's voice from years ago. "Never let them see you break, Emily. Dignity is power they can't steal." So Amelia took a deep, silent breath. She raised her head, gave a very small, very faint smile, a smile made of pure ice, and walked away from the ballroom without a single word, leaving the red wine stain, the laughter, and the man who was her husband behind. She walked toward the quiet of the restroom, leaving her shame to soak into the city's gossip. What Ryan and Chelsea didn't know as they celebrated their victory was the secret Amelia had just discovered, a secret hidden in plain sight, a secret so powerful it would take everything they had, every penny, every asset, every bit of their future, and crush it into dust. Did that shock you? Ryan is about to learn that Amelia is not just a woman scorned, she is a silent bomb. Click the like button if you think Amelia deserves revenge. Subscribe so you don't miss the moment she brings his whole world down. And comment below with the state you are watching from. To understand how Amelia got that silver gown covered in red wine, we have to go back to how she met Ryan Hayes, the man who looked like a genius but was actually a thief. Amelia and Ryan had been the ultimate power couple in Chicago. She was the heir to Carter Industries, a solid, old-money engineering company. He was a smart, hungry entrepreneur with big ideas. Amelia didn't just stand by him. She helped him build his company, Hayes Global, from the ground up, using her family's connections and her own sharp business mind. For 10 years they were a team. But 3 months ago things started to feel cold. Ryan was always on his phone, always working late, and always canceling their dinner plans. Amelia knew about the change, but she didn't know the reason was sitting right under her nose. Chelsea Knox, his once-upon-a-time secretary. The first real heartbreak wasn't the affair. It was the conversation that happened the morning after the wine spill gala. Amelia walked into their luxury penthouse dining room in Miami, where Ryan was calmly sipping his espresso, reading the financial paper. Chelsea, looking very much at home, was perched on the counter in one of Amelia's own silk robes. Ryan didn't even look up right away. When he did, his voice was too casual. "Well, you had quite a night, Amelia. The world finally knows where things stand," he said, folding the paper. "And where exactly do things stand, Ryan?" Amelia asked, her fingers tightly gripping her teacup. He gave her that cold, confident smirk. "After the big Vance-Hayes merger closes next week, I'm filing for divorce. You'll get your settlement and I'll have peace. I'll be taking over all the new assets." "And the joint account? The one with the $100 million we both built?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ryan finally looked her right in the eye. "Already taken care of. I moved the funds this morning. Consider it efficiency." Chelsea snickered, swinging her feet off the counter. "Don't take it personally, darling. You were just holding his fortune for a while." Amelia felt the teacup tremble in her hand, but she didn't let it break. Instead, she offered them a faint, strange smile. Then I suppose I'll hold my peace. Ryan and Chelsea laughed, thinking they had won everything. They grabbed their briefcases and keys and left for his important morning meeting. The moment the door closed, Amelia walked into Ryan's study. She wasn't searching for love notes or jewelry, she was searching for answers. She looked through his desk and found a folder marked Acquisition Final Signatures. Inside she found pages and pages of documents. Pages that authorized giant company takeovers, massive money transfers, and the creation of secret companies in faraway places like Malta and the Cayman Islands. And on every single paper there was a signature. Her signature. Amelia wasn't stupid. She knew she hadn't signed these papers. The documents were all perfectly forged. It wasn't just about stealing the $100 million. Ryan was much worse than a simple cheat. He hadn't just taken their money, he had used her name, her reputation, and her signature to commit massive fraud. Amelia immediately called her father's old, trusted lawyer, Mr. Whitaker, in Washington, D.C. When she spread the forged papers across Mr. Whitaker's big, mahogany desk, his kind face turned serious and dark. "These are not just mergers, Amelia," he said, adjusting his glasses. "These are liability shields. Ryan has moved entire new companies offshore, and every single one is under your legal authority." Amelia's heart dropped into her stomach. "Meaning?" "Meaning," Mr. Whitaker's voice was measured and grave, "if all this fraud unravels, and it will eventually, the law will see you as the person who planned every illegal deal. You will take the fall, not him." The words hit her like a punch. Ryan hadn't just divorced her. He was trying to send her to prison, leaving her with the blame while he ran off with Chelsea and his stolen cash. He was confident she would never dare fight back. He thought he had planned every move perfectly. But Mr. Whitaker gave her a tiny flicker of light. "There is one thing he could not touch without your written consent." "What is it?" Amelia asked, her voice steady now, the trembling gone. "Your maiden holdings. The Carter Trust still owns 22% of Hayes Global's original shares. It's quiet, dormant, forgotten amid all Ryan's noise. If you reclaim that trust and prove these signatures are fake, you can not only stop the divorce but regain control of the entire corporation. Every single stolen dollar becomes evidence against him." This was it. It wasn't about tears anymore. It was war. Amelia looked at the forged papers, her public humiliation playing over in her mind. Now the public mockery looked different. It looked like motive. The moment that stripped away her fear. "I'll need everything you can find on those offshore accounts," Amelia said, her voice low and precise, just like her father's used to be. "And I want to know who handled the transfers. Every accountant, every lawyer, every single step." Mr. Whitaker nodded. "If we move forward, there's no turning back." Amelia's lips curved into a smile that was half sorrow, half sharp metal. "He ended our marriage in public. I will end his empire in silence." Amelia didn't go home. She sat in the car and pulled out her phone. She needed more than a lawyer. She needed someone who knew the inside of Hayes Global. She texted one name, Ethan Brooks. Ethan was a brilliant engineer who worked for Hayes Global for years, but Ryan had fired him suddenly 2 years ago. Not because he was bad at his job, but because he was too honest and started asking questions about Ryan's shady business deals. "Ethan, it's Amelia. I need your help. It's about Hayes Global." Within 2 minutes, the reply came back, "I've been waiting for this." Amelia was no longer alone. She had a plan, a legal loophole, the Carter Trust, and a technical expert, Ethan. They began their work in the shadows. Ethan met Amelia in quiet, dark cafes or the back rooms of old Carter engineering sites, places Ryan would never think to look. Ethan brought laptops, hard drives, and secret files. "He hid everything offshore," Ethan whispered one night, spreading papers on a table under a dim light bulb. "Secret companies, fake invoices, even bribed some auditors. He thought it was untraceable. But it's not," Amelia stated. "No," Ethan confirmed. "Because what Ryan didn't realize is that every single transaction, every wire transfer, every secret payment to the Cayman Islands, every dollar he stole, all of it had to run through the same system. They all went through Carter Capital Bank." Amelia froze. Her mind raced. "Carter Capital Bank. That bank?" she asked, almost too quiet to hear. Ethan nodded. "The very one your father founded. The one you inherited 2 years ago, right before he passed. He changed the official name and added a Hayes Global logo, but under the hood, Amelia, it's still your bank." The revelation was like a bolt of lightning, hitting her with shocking, perfect justice. Ryan Hayes had used his wife's own bank, a bank she owned unaware, to hide the fortune he stole from her. It was poetic. It was cruel. And it was the quiet bomb she needed. "Ethan," Amelia said, her eyes gleaming with cold focus. "I want every single trace of those accounts. I want proof that every dollar he stole, every fake transaction, every illegal wire came directly through my bank." He looked at her, his face showing a mix of admiration and fear. "Amelia, if he finds out, he won't," she cut him off, her voice absolute. "He thinks I'm broken. That's my shield." The days that followed were a dangerous game of acting. The world thought Amelia Carter Hayes had vanished into humiliation. Tabloids called Chelsea the new Mrs. Hayes. Society whispered about Amelia like she was a sad ghost. And Amelia let them. Every morning she played her part in the penthouse. She was quiet, gracious, and seemingly defeated. At breakfast, Ryan and Chelsea would openly discuss the details of the $8.4 billion Vance merger, treating her like a servant. Amelia would pour their coffee. "More sugar, Ryan?" He never noticed the heavy irony in her question. He never noticed the way her phone vibrated silently under the table, a signal from Ethan that another batch of secret data had been uploaded to her hidden drive. By day she poured coffee. By night she worked in her study, dismantling them piece by piece. Ethan's team grew. He brought in Mara, an analyst fired for questioning a bad merger, and Dean, a compliance officer who quit after refusing a massive bribe. Mara handed Amelia a flash drive one night. Encrypted logs. It shows how Chelsea handled the wire instructions from Ryan's private server. She used your forged authority for every single transaction. "And we found something else," Dean added. "Offshore papers that show Ryan is using fake charities, false foundations, to move the stolen money into Chelsea's personal accounts. She's laundering his theft through charity." Amelia simply closed the file. Her expression didn't change, but her heart was beating with quiet triumph. "Good. We need notarized evidence. Every signature, every timestamp verified." Ethan watched her, his concern clear. "You're colder than I remember, Amelia." She looked up from the data. "Fire learned how to wear ice," she replied. The tension in the penthouse was thick. Ryan and Chelsea were celebrating early. The merger was set for the next morning. Ryan was blinded by success, bragging endlessly to reporters about his new era of leadership, inspired by Chelsea. One night, Chelsea, tipsy on champagne, found Amelia in the hallway. "Still living here because you can't afford to leave?" Chelsea slurred, waving a hand dripping in diamonds. "Ryan said he's keeping you around until the papers are final. Isn't that pathetic?" Amelia's reply was so soft, Chelsea had to lean in to hear it. "It's called patience. You should try it sometime." Chelsea frowned, completely unsure if she'd been insulted. Amelia's calmness was starting to unnerve her. Weeks passed. The proof piled up like a tower of dominoes ready to fall. Ryan's entire stolen fortune sat in the hands of the woman he betrayed, funneled through a bank she owned, and tracked by the team he had cast out. He thought he'd built a kingdom of glass. He never saw the cracks forming beneath his feet. Amelia printed a single sheet in her study, the offshore account summary signed with her forged name. She traced the fake signature with her finger. "This," she whispered to the empty room, "is what ends him." The morning of the signing dawned unnaturally bright. The Hayes Global Tower in downtown Manhattan was wrapped in celebratory banners and swarmed by news cameras. The $8.4 billion merger was being called the deal of the century. Amelia arrived through a side entrance, silent, regal, dressed in a sharp white suit. Her calmness was a physical thing that made people stop and stare. Ryan spotted her across the marble boardroom. Surprise flashed in his eyes for a split second before the smirk returned. "You didn't have to come, Amelia," he said smoothly, buttoning his expensive suit jacket. "This isn't your world anymore." Amelia's faint smile never wavered. "I'm still a shareholder, Ryan. I like to see where my name ends up." He laughed, assuming his victory was guaranteed. Chelsea stood beside him, radiant with stolen triumph, ready to sign the papers that would crown her queen. The entire world was watching this final triumphant moment for Ryan Hayes. Amelia stood quietly by the side of the room, her briefcase resting on the table, her hand ready to open it. She was no longer playing the role of the defeated ex-wife. She was the one holding all the power. The CEO of Vance Industries sat down. Ryan and Chelsea took their places at the head of the table, smiling for the cameras. The huge, final merger document was pushed forward. "Ready to sign, Ryan?" the Vance CEO asked. Ryan reached for the pen, but Amelia finally spoke, her voice clear, calm, and carrying through the silent boardroom like a chime. "Before you do, Ryan, I need to know, which account did you use to pay the deposit for this merger?" Ryan froze, the pen hovering over the paper. The camera stopped flashing. Chelsea's triumphant smile fell away. Amelia stepped forward, placing her briefcase on the table, and looked directly into Ryan's now frightened eyes. Because, you see, Amelia continued, her voice taking on the steel of her father, I own Carter Capital Bank. And this morning I just initiated a global freeze on every single account and every single asset that has ever been wired from it, including that deposit. Everything you own, Ryan, is now untouchable. She opened her briefcase. Inside, the single printed sheet of paper with the forged signature lay on top of a stack of legal documents. And now, my dear husband, Amelia finished, her eyes finally blazing with the cold fire of revenge. The woman you betrayed is calling in your debt. And it's not $100 million. It's everything. The silence in the room was absolute, a perfect, crushing vacuum around Ryan and Chelsea. The boardroom went from buzzing excitement to absolute, terrifying silence. The CEO of Vance Industries, a man named Mr. Thompson, looked from the pen frozen in Ryan's hand to Amelia's cold, determined face. He looked at the giant deal document, then back to the stunning, beautiful woman who had just claimed ownership over the entire financial spine of his merger partner. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Thompson said, his voice now sharp with alarm. Is what your wife says true? Are your assets frozen? Ryan's face had gone paper white. The color drained from him so fast that the arrogant smirk he'd worn for months seemed to shatter. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. He couldn't speak. He just stared at Amelia's briefcase, specifically at the single sheet of paper with the forged signature. Chelsea, however, found her voice, a loud, screeching noise that broke the silence. She's lying. She's a jealous, pathetic ex-wife trying to ruin your deal, Ryan. Don't listen to her. It's impossible. She doesn't even know what she owns. Chelsea shrieked, reaching for the merger document, trying to yank it out of Ryan's reach. Amelia simply pushed the paper with her forged signature toward the center of the table. It's not impossible, Chelsea. It's inheritance, Amelia corrected her, her voice ringing with clarity. And I know exactly what I own. She then turned to the cameras and reporters who were now furiously taking pictures. Mr. Hayes emptied our joint account, yes. But the money and all the profits from his recent corporate expansion went through Carter Capital Bank's global system, Amelia announced clearly. My father founded that bank. I inherited it. And under corporate ethics rules, as the owner, I have full authority to freeze any account suspected of fraud, money laundering, or the use of forged signatures. She pointed to the forged document. That signature is mine, but I never signed it. That document authorized Mr. Hayes and Ms. Knox to move billions into offshore shell companies in the Caymans. Companies designed to make me, Amelia Carter Hayes, responsible for his financial crimes. The reporters gasped. Fraud. Forgery. Money laundering. This was not just a messy divorce. It was a criminal enterprise. Mr. Thompson stood up from the table instantly. Ryan, if there is any question of asset liquidity or legal liability, there is more than a question, sir. Amelia cut in, not giving Ryan a chance to regain control. She opened her briefcase fully. The Carter Trust, which holds 22% of Hayes Global's original capital, is now being used to file an emergency injunction. She placed a thick stack of papers on the table. This filing, delivered to the courts this moment by Mr. Whitaker, accuses Ryan Hayes of gross corporate misconduct, criminal fraud, and embezzlement of funds that were funneled through the bank I own. Since the merger deposit was paid from a now frozen, illegally obtained source, the entire Vance Industries deal is now null and void. A reporter shouted, Mrs. Hayes, what does this mean for Mr. Hayes? Amelia looked at Ryan, whose hands were shaking too hard to hold the pen. It means that the money he stole is gone because I froze it. The company he built on lies is about to be seized, because the law sees me as the only clean, original shareholder left, Amelia said, delivering the final, crushing blow. And the legal shields he set up to protect himself? He set them up in my name. So, by exposing the fraud, I protected myself and made sure that Ryan Hayes and Chelsea Knox will now face full legal responsibility for everything they did. Chelsea rushed at Amelia, her eyes wide with panic. You witch. You can't do this. That's my money. Those are my diamonds. Before Chelsea could touch her, a team of official-looking men in sharp suits stepped forward. Dean, Mara, and Ethan, who were now acting as legal witnesses and security. They blocked Chelsea perfectly. Ryan finally found his voice, a broken croak. You can't. I built this. I own you. Amelia finally let her composure crack, but only with contempt, not tears. She had spent months playing the defeated wife, and now she was done. You never owned me, Ryan. You owned my silence, Amelia said, leaning close so only he could hear her final words. My father taught me that if they destroy your name, you rebuild your meaning. You destroyed my pride with red wine. I am taking your entire life with a bank account. Mr. Thompson, horrified, gave Ryan a look of pure disgust and walked away, his merger officially dead. The reporters rushed forward, ignoring Ryan and Chelsea completely, focusing on Amelia. The police and federal agents who had been waiting outside based on Mr. Whitaker's emergency filing, swept into the room. They walked straight past the reporters, straight toward Ryan and Chelsea. Ryan and Chelsea watched in silent horror as an officer read them their rights. The cameras flashed, capturing the moment the man who thought he was invincible was finally crushed. Chelsea sobbed as an officer gently but firmly took the diamond bracelet off her wrist, the one Ryan had bought with Amelia's stolen money. Amelia watched them both get escorted out of the room, their faces ruined by panic and defeat. They were not untouchable geniuses anymore. They were criminals who had miscalculated the power of the woman they had scorned. Amelia gathered her briefcase, her composure perfect. The battle was over. Her dignity was restored, her name was cleared, and the corporate empire built on a lie had collapsed. She walked out of the Hayes Global Tower and into the blinding New York sunlight, no longer the sad, disgraced ex-wife, but the brilliant, quiet strategist who had won everything back. The story was over. Ryan Hayes and Chelsea Knox were utterly crushed forever, all because they never stopped to ask the simplest, most dangerous question. What if the woman you betrayed owns the bank that holds your sins?